Halloween candy has changed. This map shows the most popular treats by region in the United States. I don't know about you, but there's a whole lot of candy missing, and that means trick-or-treaters are missing out. Today it looks like a bunch of the same old Twix and M&Ms. We used to have such an array and an unusual variety of goodies in our Halloween bucket. And yes, we ate it. I'm Victor, and straight out of the GEN Xperience, the trick-or-treat candies that filled our sacks on Halloween night. The treats that excited us, but would baffle today's costumed kiddies, big brand fun-sized candy bars weren't as common as these classic favorites that made the bulk of the candy bulge in the 1970s. If you enjoy shows like these, please consider treating me to a like, or maybe even subscribe for more content from the greatest generation. Christmas and Easter were major holidays for satisfying our sweet tooth, but Halloween was the biggest sugar rush of them all. When heading out on the bewitched evening, with full tummies to help curb our candy appetite, we can only imagine the vast array of gourmet confections that would win the night. Which do you remember fondly, and which do you despise? Anticipating many new and exciting treats, we also knew to expect the usual suspects. Candy that's still around today, but gets far less play. Those like Whoppers, the malted milk ball in a milk carton. Clever, even if we had no clue what malt was. They weren't the sweetest chocolate, but it was candy. Tootsie Rolls by the dozens were also expected. The mystery chocolates, or caramel, or was it fudge? Whatever they are, they filled our treat buckets ready to be unrolled and chewed until our jaw hurt. Especially the bigger ones. Strange how the bigger they got, the worse they tasted. We didn't even have those flavored Tootsie Rolls like we do today, but if we did, they would certainly be winners. Tootsie Rolls by default meant we'd also get Tootsie Pops. I was like Mr. Owl, and after only a minute of sucking and a few licks, I was into that gooey center. There were Blow Pops too. Suckers, as I called them, made up a good portion of our candy stash. Did you call lollipops suckers, or was it just us from the Pacific Northwest? Kinda like pop. Speaking of pop, I preferred Tootsie Pops over Blow Pops, because with a Blow Pop, once you got to the middle, you were stuck chewing a while, and you couldn't refill your pie hole with more candy until you were done. Luckily, the grainy, tough gum that was more like rubber set a record for the length of flavor, shortest at 1.5 seconds.
Son of a bitch!
It wouldn't be long before you spit it out or swallowed it. Don't try to deny it. Then there were Smarties, or poor man's sweet tarts. These were probably even more prevalent than Tootsie Rolls. There were the official Smarties, and then there were the knockoffs. And don't try to tell me there wasn't any difference. Those off-brands were made stale and could break a tooth. However, you'd probably get some real sweet tarts, a pack of 2 in a slim paper sleeve. I was a huge fan of the full-sized roll of these delicious treats, so give all your sweet tarts to me if you don't like them. Another mainstay in our Halloween candy bag was Pixie Sticks. The powdered version of sweet tarts. I'd take those sweet tablets over these pure sugar straws anytime. They left my mouth tightly puckered, while I wondered if this is what Kool-Aid tasted like straight. I'll trade these for your Laffy Taffies if you got any. Laffy Taffies were the original fruit-flavored caramel, and straight up lied to kids from the start. These weren't caramels, but actually Taffy Chews. Soft and awesome. And you got a joke or two in the wrapper. Even better, those little squares of sweet goodness never failed to please. Unless it was banana. Who does that to a kid? Who makes banana candy? That should be illegal. Speaking of illegal, don't confuse Laffy Taffies with Now and Laters. Yikes. Common mistake. One extreme to another. Be prepared to soak that candy cube in saliva before your teeth can even sink in. The now is the initial sucking on what feels like a hard candy. The later is when it becomes soft and you can finally chew it. The wrapper was always a bitch to remove, and the candy itself was more of a chore. But as kids do, we ate it. Do yours? Today, Now and Laters have wimped out on the hard candy start, so I guess that makes them better now than later, right? Are any of these candies you or your kids you know still eating today? Where once you could get them at anything from a candy store to grocery store, some are only found on Amazon. I know Tootsie Rolls still make an appearance trick-or-treating, but are we still in relatively well-known candy territory? If so, get a load of these that might leave today's kids looking back at you baffled. Do your kids know Sixlets? Tiny, and I mean teeny, not worth the trouble, minuscule balls of chocolate with a wheat-colored candy shell. How do these even make a profit? I've never seen them for Christmas or Valentine's Day. Supposedly, each have a slight flavor variation, but I think that's just marketing mumbo jumbo. The same candy company had something called Five Sums, but with sixlets, they wouldn't even have 6 balls in it until 2017. Now I assume they thought you'd eat one at a time, but they were simply chasers to better candy, as you split it open and fed yourself the small spheres by biting one end and dragging them down into your throat. Anyone giving or getting these while trick-or-treating? Those knockoff Smarties were delicacies compared to a candy well known in kid legend, the infamous Necco wafer. I had them. Once. Unless that was the only thing a kid could afford, I don't know why anyone would have them twice. If you hear anyone say they love them, that's just their wine-soaked nostalgia talking. If you didn't get enough dust in your mouth from pounding erasers as a kid, pop a Necco into your mouth and see what chalk tastes like. I'd steer clear of what amounts to a barely sweet, thin digestive disguised as a candy wafer. Coming in that waxy seal, Necco wafers passed themselves off as candy to unexpected kidlets. But I wasn't going to fall for it. Unless, of course, they were in my trick-or-treat load. If I couldn't trade them, I'd eat them. Candy's candy, right? Unless your kid is chugging a brewski, they may ask you, what is a bottle cap? To which you'd reply, it's a Necco wafer that actually tastes good. That's actually candy. Similar to a sweet tart, bottle caps tasted like soda, so we were led to believe. Ask me as a kid and I would have told you I could taste the carbonated bubbles. I couldn't. There was cherry, orange, grape, root beer, and even cola, and they were shaped like bottle caps. Now I know you can get one of these online, but having a sugar daddy for Halloween was a special treat. You've heard of the everlasting gobstopper, right? This was the everlasting fudge stick. I mean, check out the huge-ass novelty version that someone got for someone each Christmas. Don't let the Tootsie Roll with a handle fool you. Due to the effort to eat this sweet tooth decayer without pulling out a molar, you saved it for last. But as a pre-meal, you can indulge yourself with Daddy's Little Helpers, Sugar Babies, a lighter, easier to chew bag of caramel-like candy pellets. So where's all the candy gone? Candy was a luxury in the 70s. No, it wasn't hard to come by, and it wasn't reserved for royalty. It was abundant. So many kinds, but so little time. But candy wasn't given out like, candy back then. It was a treat, an occasional joy. But if it was in the house, it was hard grandma candy in a crystal dish that you weren't always in the mood for. Clever mom. Where are all these classic candies now for Halloween? Are people only giving out big name brands? Are kids still getting treated with such staples as lemon heads, which had a much harder shell in my day? What about a box of Red Hots? Not hot tamales, but Red Hots. Oh, and what about a personal favorite, Boston baked beans? No, we weren't giving bowls of beans to provide gas to keep the kids' motor running, but candy-coated peanuts. These weren't for the faint of heart. Their dried blood color of reddish-brown was strangely rare in the spectrum of Halloween candy, but it took some jaw fortitude to get through that original candy shell. I assume today the jaw-breaking outer shell has become a lot more forgiving when getting to the peanut inside. These were awesome candies. Sure, we loved getting the snack-size name brands, but that was still the holy grail and not an expectation when trick-or-treating during the GEN Xperience. And when I say snack size, I mean a smaller version, not a share size, not a mini or today's useless bite size, maybe a fun size, a Snicker of significance. But if someone was giving full-sized, you hit the mother load. Of course, there were those candies that have the audience divided, too. Wax lips, along with fangs and mustaches. Trick-or-treaters today would think we were pulling their leg, but so many of my friends loved wax bottles, no matter what time of year. How did you do it? Were you one to chew on the wax bottle for the burst of fruit juice party in your mouth? Or did you bite off the wax top and drink the juice out? Let me know how it was done. I avoided these like the dentist. I can only imagine all those kids who used to love to chew on that wax had swallowed so much of the perplexing paraffin that they'd created nothing less than a 3-wick candle in their bellies. And I can't imagine what their poop looked like. Ooh. And this goes for candy buttons. Here the wax isn't the main feature, but only the holding pad for the countless colored candy dots you peel off that tasted like flavorless fondant.
Oh, what fun!
And what about gum? Is that a thing in your trick-or-treat arsenal? Do you hand it out? Do kids today get gum? Do they even chew it? Once gum was marketed like fast food on TV, today it's hard enough to find Big Red or Double Mint. Halloween gum came in many different disguises. Who remembers another milk carton? One filled with orange-flavored gum shards. These misshapen crumbs of gum were difficult to resist, shoving handfuls in your mouth at a time. We were thrilled with the diverse sugary payoff after our hard work to prepare a costume and schlep door to door in the scary, cold, sometimes snowy, dark night. Risking being spirited away by ghosts or even creepers, the final jackpot was like striking gold and worth it even with pieces of crappy pink chalk called Bazooka Joe tossed in the mix. That stuff was made in 1948, and I think the gum we chewed in the 70s was from the original surplus. Ugh, or Double Bubble. I might as well just lie down and chew on the gravel road. There were also those little boxes of Nev Campbell's teeth. I mean, chiclets. And sticks of Wrigley's or Fruit Stripe gum. With those, I'm all in. But beggars can't be choosers, and boy, were we beggars. But we didn't always get a choice. Still, we got so much more variety than the standards that kids get today. Even crap that we hated. Homemade treats were suspect, even back then. But some cookies and handmade candies, especially caramel popcorn balls from a known neighbor or friend, weren't often turned away or balked at. Not like an apple. These shiny fruit treats were used for target practice when chucked high or hard into the air for a memorable splat on the pavement or wall. And then there's candy corn. Love it or hate it, CC, does anyone call it that? No? Candy corn was a staple in whatever guise it took, joined by Indian corn, where cocoa gives it the darker hue, and autumn mix, where mellow cream pumpkins were added. The buttery, crumbly, decadent sweet does nothing less than incite outrage from the camps on either side of its worth. This very chewy chalk has some agreeable flavor, but I have a limit. Like shrimp, I think overdosing on candy corn is a medical emergency. Blame Brock's Candy for all of this hoopla, but they did have a redeeming quality. Outside of candy corn, they actually produced a very moist caramel square. These authentic pieces of unadulterated candy had an almost elevated flavor. But look out, you better make an appointment with your orthodontist in advance if you had braces over Halloween. During the spooky season, candy corn evolved from a loose option to grab a handful of to cute small boxes, not unlike Valentine hearts, but filled with the yellow, orange, and white of Halloween tradition handed out to trick-or-treaters. These boxes would be one of the few candies that were themed, stylized with Halloween imagery or a scary motif. Unlike most other candies that identified as their usual self during the holiday, this and a few others came out specifically for the haunting holiday in October. There were specialty caramel apple lollipops similar to the caramel apple treats that we made at home with Rapples. Anyone remember these delicious and instant autumn fun treats? Nothing said Halloween like a caramel-covered Granny Smith, except for a coffin filled with candy bones. Mr. Bones candy were skeleton-shaped pieces of candy that also acted as a puzzle. Did you put your skeleton together before you ate it, or did it never even make it that far? They knew what we wanted, a candy skeleton to munch and a cool treasure box to store our most prized possessions. The rest of the year, you could get garbage candy. Get it? Similar candy in a plastic trash can. This time, however, no puzzle. Just eat anything from banana peels to old shoes. Drac snacks were another themed treat that made its annual appearance like Monster cereal or Monster candy. Smoke like Dad with 2 sticks of candy cigarettes in Universal Monster themed boxes, like real Universal Monsters. That's Lugosi and Karloff pushing cigarettes. Talk about class. My mom was not ashamed to offer those Halloween-colored wrapped candies by the handful to trick-or-treaters. Sealed in twisted paper of black and orange, the old standby of peanut butter, or maple, or maybe it was molasses. One brand called them Halloween Kisses. They might go by a variety of names, but they are despised by millions. Still, the mystery mix of flavors remains one of my go-to Halloween holiday candies to have around the house. Anyone else in the minority like me who has a love for these generic sweets? Then there was the treat not to eat. No, not tampered candy. The roll of pennies, sometimes in foil. Some kindly neighbor was bound to hand this one out, but it could still cure your sweet tooth because pennies were once used to buy candy. Can you believe it? Pennies. Coins you found on the ground could actually get you candy. The store happily took your money and they bought you something. We didn't turn away money. We were imagining how much more candy we could get with that loose change. Maybe we could get some of those other favorite candies from the 70s, some that kept their home in the candy store, and others that made their way to your Halloween bucket. Mallow Cups, Clark Bar, Bit of Honey, Milk Duds, $100,000 bar before they were $100,000. Almond Joy or oh no, nobody wanted Almond Joy or Mounds. As for gummies, we'd have to wait until 1982 for them to join the trick-or-treat cavalcade. With candy being the norm rather than the exception in this day and age, kids are used to the big name brands, serious candy and chocolate bars. They get what they want and when they want it. Major retailers stock up on common candy, while the classics exist in specialty shops that are few and far between. I'm not pretending all these traditional favorites aren't available. You can get them online. But you're sure to get funny looks from trick-or-treaters when you give them confusing candy like Mary Jane's, Chuckles, or Razzles. Or imagine their faces when you give them a small box of breakfast cereal. Halloween candies from the 1970s may have taken a back seat, but kids just don't know what they're missing. I hope this brought back some sweet memories, and you'll stick around to see other shows from the generation that brought us the GEN Xperience. Thanks for clicking the like, and those who subscribed, thanks for your help. Check out other great content. And until next time, happy Halloween!